welcome back to the Monarch Podcast. My name is Daniel, founder and CEO of the Monarch Brand. It's been a minute, so figured I'd check in with you guys. It's really good to be back. The last 9 episodes, I've had a guest. The first episode was just me telling my story about the brand. So we're going to go back to that in more ways than one. It's just me rocking with you guys today. I'm going to try to keep it quick, but I have an important announcement about the new direction that I'm going in for my business, what led up to that point, and lessons learned. So I'll get right into it. I will be discontinuing the pomade very soon. I do not have a set date as of this recording, but it'll be sometime between when you hear this, assuming you hear it before the next date I'm going to give you, which would be August 25th, which is when Shopify charges me again. And I'm not going to let that happen. So it'll be sometime before then. The pomade will be off the shop. The shop will be down. And that's just kind of what it is. For now, the business will just more so be this podcast. But I'm going to leave room for it to become whatever it is, whatever, it evolves into after that. And as for the pod itself, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm shifting it to be less about business. Like a lot of the previous episodes centered around my business or someone else, how they started their business and their journey. And it'll be more about their stories, I want to have conversations with people that I find interesting. I don't want to just have conversations with business owners, but I want to genuinely be interested in their story. That's what gets me up for this. And, we're all out here trying to do our best, and there's power in our stories. And I want to empower people by creating a platform where they feel open and comfortable sharing that. With that said, after I stop selling the pomade, I'm not gonna have nothing to sell y'all no more. So I'm gonna let my hair down a little bit more. There was I have other platforms for those of you who don't know. And I don't know, being on this platform, there's just kind of like this undertone, especially in this age of social media, where it's like, there's a certain persona that a business owner has to have. In some instances, some just, are who they are. I wasn't fully comfortable being that, and so it wasn't bought on me, but I was a little bit more filtered on this one than I'll be on my others. My guests could do whatever, but I was a little bit more filtered. I'm going to be moving forward, like my complete self. That's how I'm going to show up. And so for those who have rocked with me in terms of buying a product, especially the repeat customers, it's been many of you, and I really appreciate it. For those of you who have just shared my story or just sent encouragement, really, really appreciate you. I started this, I was in a very different place when I started this. And this helped me to navigate a lot of what I needed to navigate life. And I'll get into this in a second, but when I got to the point that I'm at now, and not on some like money stuff, I do make a little bit more, but that's not a flex. Like, I'm just saying, like, it wasn't that. It's more so me having to sit back and evaluate where I am and where I want it and what I wanted from this. Like with Monarch, it takes work to run it. Like I could sell nothing a week, nothing a month, and there's still like things that has to happen for the business to run. And so just to get into a little bit of like how I got to this point, I'll say ad nauseum, I know definitely in the first episode that I didn't intend for this to become what it is. In 2016, it started more of like an idea, wanting to save money and people really liked it. Like the few people, like one person really liked it in particular, and I put it out there to others, and they really liked it and encouraged me to move forward with it. And then in 2017, that's kind of when the name came to me, and it was like, okay, well, the name is here. What do I do with it? And then once the logo, once I figured out the logo part, and everything just started to come to life. And so 2018 is when I officially started the business, and it took shape. And between that year and 2019, I started to put myself out there more. The website came up, got more official with the shipping and the packaging, and stuff started to just happen organically on like mostly a local level. Being in barbershops here and there, and stores and bodegas here and there. Um, 2020 was when it started to be a little bit more recognized, a little bit on a national level, not on some like this publication, but just on some like I started to see orders from like California, from like Florida, from wherever. And it was like, oh, people are finding out about this somehow. And it was something that I used to talk about just organically because I talk about what excites me, and this excited me. But I was also burnt out. And I was also wasn't having fun. Reason being, I started to get in my head about like the sales and like, oh, we gotta have these KPIs and like learning all this kind of jargon, and thinking that because I started this business and because it started to be recognized, it had to hit this. But also I worked like multiple jobs starting this up, and I just didn't have like the energy to maintain these self-imposed, deadlines, and these self-imposed like things that I were placing on myself. So 2021, I tried to get back to having fun again. That's when I like shot commercials and reels for it, and was able to do things like that. And that was honestly probably the most fun I've had. Did like 2021 and 2018 when it was just like no expectations and I would just shoot my shot. Like that was probably the most fun that I've had with my two most fun years. And 2022 was when it was recognized on an international level. This time was with the publication. But outside of like the high of that recognition, like zero fun, zero fun. I was basically a machine. Like make a post, sell product, package product, ship product, make another post. Like it was zero fun. And even though like it was the most affirmation I've gotten, the day in, day out wasn't working for me. And I had to think like, okay, what would it take? Like I do still believe it could become a 7-figure business, but I had to think like, what will it take to get there? Because this day in, day out in the kitchen isn't working for me anymore. And am I willing to do it? Like after I figured it out, am I willing to do it? And I was like, wait, am I having fun? What is fun to me? And that's when I came to the revelations that like I just shared. And I concluded that I was having like less fun doing this than I was not doing it. Like the podcast was probably what gave me a little bit more life, like starting this podcast, and as it pertains to the business. Um, and so, it became this thing where I started to socialize it with friends, and it was like, oh, you can keep it going. It's doing so well. And it was like, yeah, sure. But, there's people who are doing well in their respective sport, in their respective craft, and they retire, maybe not on top, but, they're at a level where they can still perform, and they decide to retire because they feel like they've done all that there is to do. And that's kind of the point that I got to with this. I felt like I exceeded my expectation, and it would no longer be me acting to try to do more than what I was already doing or what I had already done. So that's kind of how I got there to this point. And you know, salute to those who start any kind of business. Like it's really hard making things from scratch. It takes balls. It probably has taken me more balls personally to bow out than it has to start it. Because I feel like I didn't have anything to lose when I started it. But then like leaving it, it's just kind of like well, what if I would have went harder, or what if I didn't do this thing? But I feel like it's in alignment with who I'm becoming, and I stand on it. Again, I appreciate those who rock with me and who will continue to rock with me. If you watch this and you see my social media feeds, they've already kind of stopped at this point because I just like, but you've already stopped seeing me advertise pomade. So when you just see me typing in all lowercase and just talking about podcasts, like this is why, because there's not going to be no more pomade. I'm just going to put this content out in a way that's like not as annoying, like as little annoying as possible, but is what I'm going to do. The way that I'm going to end this, because again, I don't want to take too much time with it. I want to reflect on the things that I kind of wrote down for myself that I would have done differently, and like kind of the lessons I learned from that. The first thing I would have done differently is I would have figured out why I wanted to do this. Well, if I wanted to do this, why and for how long. Like I said, like I kind of did it and just put myself out there, but I was mostly just vibing. And there is a chance that if I were more strategic instead of just vibing, there's a chance that this could have played out differently. And the place that I had to sit with in 2023 and decide, do I want to, I've done this for this amount of years, do I want to go harder for this amount of years? I may have already been closer to that, and it could have been less of a gap between where I wanted to be if I would have figured out what it is I wanted to do and if I wanted to do it earlier on. The second thing I would do is I would have come up with like solid principles for working with people, and I would have stood on them. I say that because, again, I didn't have a ton of confidence as a business owner. I felt weird selling it to people at first because it was just like how does this compete with what's already out? Why is it that you want to buy this over, the next thing? And so I didn't have a lot of confidence in my product. And so when I was approached by barbers early on, I had to come to terms that most barbers, they're not like merchandisers. Like they want to cut hair, and then if your product is sitting on the side and they happen to sell it and get money for it, that's passive income from them. But a lot of them aren't naturally inclined to push it. And from my perspective, I have to sell it to you at a rate that we agree upon, and then I have to give you free samples. And so that's kind of taking away from the rate from my bottom line. And so, them not being merchandisers, in my experience, a lot of them didn't want to deal with contracts and were just like, and this was foolish of me, but I kind of like, I knew this person going in. And so I took them at their word, but I bring my stuff to one shop and they sell it. And then like, we're in all this communication. And again, I knew this person beforehand, and then like nothing, they sell my product and then like, that's it. Another one, kind of buys it at the agreed upon rate up front. And then the second time around, they try to reduce the rate, like buy it at a reduced rate. And it's like, I'm already like selling it to you at a pretty good price. And so it's just like not want to deal with that, like I learned the second time around better, but I should have had like my own little, even if it wasn't written out, like my own standard operating procedure. The third thing, I would have vetted people I work with. There has, and I really do hate to say this, but more like if I need something done, if I need a service, whether it's, a website, whether it's photography or something, I'm going to go black first. Like I'm going to go to my people. Unfortunately, I typically am more comfortable with speaking with them, but unfortunately there's this level of comfort that is not preceded by like the level of service in some instances. And there are some instances where they don't deliver on their promise, or they overpromise, underdeliver, that type of thing. And I regret it. There's been times where it's like I regretted working with my people, and I hate that. Like I hate that so much. And because because it's just like not a good look. Like how you gonna do that? But then also it forces me to think twice about dealing with my own people again, and I don't want to do that. Like I want to automatically be what it is naturally, so I really hated that. I also would have, it's number 4, determined what was and wasn't best for me business wise. There were some things, like I said, the commercials were a lot of fun. It was technically a bad business decision. They cost money and you have to make that money back. And so like I understand artists more now, like music artists, when they shoot a video and it's like I have to pay this person, I might have to rent a space or something like that. And all of this, I have to hope that I at least get it back. The ideal scenario is that I make money off of it, but I hope to at least get it back. So if the videography costs, just to throw something out there, $700, I have to sell $700 worth of product to break even. Was it worth that? No, it wouldn't have been worth that. It was a lot of fun, but it wouldn't have been worth that. Websites cost money. Got to make that back. I'm not mad at getting my website done professionally. The first time I had a friend do it, it was somewhat mutually beneficial. They did it for free. Shout out to them. The second time I paid. But that's another expense that like I have to make back. If I'm being honest, I don't know if I should even say the name, it's pretty obvious, but the publication that I was in 2022, where I was internationally recognized, probably would not do that again. Because I guess people think that it's like free, like they just choose you and it's like, we want you, you know what I mean? On some Uncle Sam shit. And it is that, but it's like, we want you because your aesthetic fits what we have in our magazine. Now, it's up to you to pay for the exposure or not. There is maybe a level where you can get into those magazines for free. I wasn't there. And so, not only did it cost money, but then you kind of anticipate the exposure you're going to get. And so I try to keep it pretty lean day in, day out. But then, like there's some products that can take a week or two to get. And so I didn't want to be like, okay, day 1, I'm in this magazine, and then day 2, I have like 10,000 orders from it, and I'm out here lacking. And so, to be honest, I ordered a lot of product that I did not need. And so, it didn't end up paying off. And when you think about it, like for those of you who know where it was and have seen it in there, where I was featured in the magazine is like, say the magazine is like 150 pages. I was on page like 140. So when you think about the average person who's looking for a pomade, are they going to go, are they going to buy the magazine? And if they do, are they going to go to page 140 looking for pomade? And if they do, it's me and it's like 30 other, maybe not pomade, but 30 other grooming essentials with similar blurbs. And so it's like, when I looked at it from the standpoint of the buyer, I was like, oh, that's why. But it made sense for it to be marketed to me the way it was, but it also makes sense why it didn't pan out the way I might have thought it would, because I came in with some built-in assumptions. And I wish I don't have this like written down, but I wish I would have had someone in there that would have sat down with me and maybe have been there before and, explored that possibility. Because when I would present it to everyone, it's like, well, you would be stupid not to take that, like just off top. And, it wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't say it wasn't good advice, but it was hollow advice. And it wasn't the best thing for me, but it's lesson learned, and I fell into this trap also of doing some of these investments, I'll say, and kind of like saying like, this is a tax write-off, you know what I mean? And like, dude, that's not good business. You know what I mean? It's really not. That was me tripping, and I certainly would have been more bottom line oriented if I were to do things again. I would have been a lot better off. But those are things that I kind of learned on the back end. The vetting and the business decisions kind of go hand in hand. The fifth thing, which is honestly, this is the last thing I'm going to go through. This is honestly like what freed me from this, is this being like, well, I'll just get into it and it'll make sense in a second. Letting go of the notion that I have to know and do everything, and to get into that a little bit, I typically don't talk about things like this on this platform. I have a platform where I can freely go left field whenever I want to. But I've been really into human design for the past 2 years. And like every time I go back to, human design, for those of you who aren't familiar, it is a combination of like old and new methodologies. Think kind of like a hybrid between the Myers-Briggs, astrology, and things of that nature. But it's based kind of around like energy centers in your body, and how they flow and how it makes up who you are and how you are. And so it's really you helping to learn how you're designed so that you can leverage that into who you want to be, and not even who you want to be, but like who you are, like kind of marrying those two. And every time I go back to my reading, my chart, my notes, my body graph, that there's something that I like hone on. And lately I've been honing on like the self and the not self. So like there's these different things that kind of like for me, my design, there's like the general overarching self, which for me is like satisfaction. So if something satisfies me, then that's something that I should move forward with. The not self is frustration. So, if something frustrates me, that's probably not for me. And there's 5 different types. And as a manifesting generator, for a long time, I was like in this grind mode, like trying to get out the mud and stuff like that, that I would do a lot of things that frustrated me to try to get to where I wanted to go anyway. And so I would have all this energy, but be working against myself, doing something that I really didn't want to do. And what also doesn't help that is, these energy centers in your body are like your head centers and your throat center, your solar plexus, your heart. They can be open or defined. So my head center is open, which means that I take in a lot of people's thoughts without realizing it. And it can be hard for me to recognize my thoughts from someone else's. So I'm getting all this encouragement and I am taking in their thoughts, but I'm moving in frustration, and for the head center, me having an open head center, the not self is thinking about things that don't matter. And the not self question is, am I trying to answer everyone else's questions? Um, my other open center, out of the 9 centers, I have 2 that are open, 7 are defined, is the ajna center. The ajna is somewhere energetically, somewhere between the head and the throat. The not self for the ajna is pretending to be certain. And the not self question is, am I trying to convince everyone that I am certain? And so on top of me taking in everyone's thoughts, we generally live in this society now where everyone, I'm not gonna say everyone, I hate like this all or nothing thing. A lot of people try to be experts at something that they don't really have to be. People watch a movie and critique it as if they're getting paid to critique it. And in my opinion, it's actually preventing them from enjoying the movie. People will listen to an album 15 minutes after they done listen to the album, like, oh, this is a classic. They're like ranking it with their, oh, it's not better than this one though. Like, and then they're ranking it with their artist discography, and then they're ranking their artists and like, where did this artist rank currently? Where did this artist rank all time? Like, we like run to those things. One of the platforms I'm on is a boxing platform, and I'm leaving it as well. Like, those are the 2 parts of how I'm kind of restructuring my life to move in satisfaction. It became weird to me that, like, not weird in a bad way, but just like, I went from being this boxing fan and enjoying boxing when I wanted to and talking boxing when I wanted to having to watch every fight, to score rounds with, like, I trained boxing, but with an untrained eye, in the sense that, like, I'm not a judge scoring the round. And then, like, I have to predict these fights. So I got to watch tape and make an educated decision the week before. Like, I'm having to prepare all this stuff. And, like, I'm just in a phase of life where I'm releasing myself from, like, having to know these things. Like, I don't have to know who's number 1 pound for pound. Like, I don't have to have a list. I don't have to predict. Like, I don't care who wins so and so fight, to be honest with you. Like, if I like a boxer, I'll care, but I'm not going to extend myself beyond, you know, caring beyond that, or feeling the need to know anything, that, like that. Like, for example, I didn't want to predict, for those of you who follow, there was this super big mega fight not too long ago, Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. And I didn't want to predict it because I like both fighters, but I was forced to predict it because I was on a platform where we have to predict these things. And I was wrong. I thought Spence was going to win. And so on the socials, like, there's people like gloating because they're right and people that were like sad because they're wrong. I was like, oh, well, it was still a good fight. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of what I'm on lately, man. Just like, and also, like, in that vein, like, taking it back around, whether I know what Monarch could be does not mean I have to do it. Whether or not I choose to invest in a way that no longer benefits me, like, that's something that I keep at the forefront now, instead of like, well, I need this, like, I need validation, or I need like some kind of external reward for what it is I'm doing, even though I don't like 60% of it. And so, yeah, it was just a thing where I sat back and went from the trees to the forest and was like, man, I was out here vibing and people caught that wave and I fed off that energy thinking it was what I wanted. And I just wanted to create, man. I'm a creator, bro. That's really what it is. I think that's my design. My design is to make human connection. And how I do that through here is to tell people stories and how to get to know people. I plan on bringing people on that do something that I'm interested in, but don't know a lot about. And that's just what I'm going to do from here on out. Like Monarch can be a lot of different things. And I didn't want to like sell the company because it's still so personal to me. If you don't know the story, feel free to go back to the first episode, but it's super personal to me. And I wanted it to, if I decide, well, I've already decided, but when I create what it is that I'm going to create and continue to create, if I decide to make it a business to complement that creation, I can do that. And so, yeah, man, that's what I'm on now. But again, thanks so much for rocking with me. I hope you continue to rock with me. Because as it pertains to what it is that I'm doing moving forward, like I am outside of like paying rent and like fulfilling those type of obligations around that, like I am like tunnel vision on improving my craft and producing high quality material. Just like I was with the pomade, it's going to be that same energy. But the only thing I ask for is time. And so hopefully you guys continue to rock with me. If not, it's still love, bro. You know what I mean? So again, my name is Daniel. If you made it this far, I appreciate you listening. I'm going to see you real soon. Peace.